Dad said I didn't need help because I was too strong, then gave my brother $625,000. He lost it all, and now they're begging me to fix their mess. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. Hey, I'm Elio. I'm 30 and I run my own tech startup. It's not a big company, but it keeps me comfy and covers what I need. I've got a couple of houses, one I live in, the other I rent out. I'm not rolling in cash, but I make enough to not worry too much about it. Now, here's the thing about my family. My younger brother, Henry, has always been the golden child. He's charming, smart, and can talk anyone into believing in his wild dreams. But here's the kicker, he's not exactly a follow-through kind of guy. One day he's dreaming of launching a tech company, the next it's opening a fancy restaurant, or even creating a movie studio. Awesome ideas, right? But none ever go anywhere. Instead, he always has a reason they flop, like no funding or no one backing him up. A year ago, I found out my parents took out a loan against their house to fund yet another one of Henry's projects. That's when things started unraveling. My parents are big on the whole family should support each other thing. They're not bad people, they've just got a blind spot where Henry's concerned. My dad is serious, doesn't say much, and has always made the big decisions at home. He's never really gotten what I've built, maybe because it's not the flashy success he values. My startup is modest, but it's mine, built from scratch. My mom is more gentle and nurturing, but she's all about her feelings. For her, Henry's the one who still needs help while I'm the strong one who can handle things solo. Her words are always like, "You're strong, you can manage on your own," while Henry needs his family. Growing up, we weren't rich, but we were okay. Dad had a small business, and Mom was an accountant, so we lived comfortably. Plus, my granddad left us a decent chunk of money from smart property investments, which could have been a safety net for my folks forever if they played their cards right. When I was a kid, I thought everything was fair. Birthdays were joint parties, toys and new clothes were given to both of us, usually equally. But things shifted when Henry started school. He was a star, great grades, popular with the kids and the teachers. My parents were beyond proud and kind of forgot about me in the process. It was like everything was about Henry. They paid for him to learn French, go to fancy camps, and play the piano with a private teacher. When Henry wanted to go to a top-notch private school, they didn't hesitate to pay for it. I asked to switch schools too, but my mom was like, "Public schools are fine, son. No need to waste money." I wasn't naive. I figured out pretty quickly that they thought betting on Henry would pay off big time. They thought I was already doing okay on my own. At 17, I found my passion for computers and wanted to take an online course. It wasn't expensive, especially compared to what they'd spent on Henry. But my dad just said, "You can learn coding on your own. No need to spend money on it." So I did just that. I taught myself, scouring the internet for free resources, learning everything solo, no teachers, no parental support. After a while, it hit me, they just didn't think I needed anything from them. They saw Henry as the investment, not me. And that hurt. It wasn't Henry's fault, though. I never blamed him. But I stopped expecting my parents to have my back. After college, I scrimped and saved for 2 years. By the time I was 25, I'd saved enough to kickstart a small tech company on my own. Still needed a little extra to really get it going, though. So, I needed $65,000 to get my business off the ground. I really thought about my options before deciding to ask my parents for help. I'm not one to like asking for stuff, and I wasn't looking for a handout. I was totally ready to take the money as a loan, even sign a contract to pay it back. Yet, I kept wondering why, if Henry got help so many times, couldn't I just ask once? So, I went for it and asked my parents for a big chunk of change for the first time in my life. I remember that day clearly. I sat down with them, laid out my business plan seriously and respectfully. I had done my homework, lined up some solid business partners, and was ready to be accountable for every penny. But just a few minutes in, my dad cut me off, saying, "No, it's too risky, too unsafe." I looked at him, hoping for more of an explanation, but there wasn't any. He didn't care about my ideas or the effort I'd put in. To him, whatever I did was a bad move, but when Henry tried something, it was always a dream worth backing. I didn't argue, I just gave a small, sad smile and nodded. I wasn't shocked, but I was still let down. Even without the $65,000, I didn't give up. I used my savings to start the business anyway. It meant growing slower than I planned, but I made smart financial choices and jumped on every chance to do better. It started with a small team working from home, and I worked my butt off, sometimes until I was exhausted, but I never quit. Nobody believed in me, but I did, and eventually, I made it. By the time I was 29, my company was doing well. I wasn't just living comfortably, I even bought 2 houses, one to live in and one to rent out. Both were in nice neighborhoods, and it made me feel optimistic about the future. I did all this without any support from my parents or anyone else. I earned everything I had. But I kept wondering how much my parents had spent on Henry. When Henry was 23, he opened a cafe that looked like something straight out of Europe. My parents gave him over $120,000 to help out. He picked a prime spot in the city, decked it out with fancy tables and chairs, and hired staff as if it were a top-tier restaurant. But after only 8 months, the cafe shut down. Henry had no clue about managing money, running a business, or owning up to what went wrong. So, what did my parents say after the cafe failed? The economy is really hard right now. Our sweet boy deserves another try. Of course, he got another shot. When he was 25, he tried his hand at fashion. Another $65,000 vanished into a small business selling unique clothing, and this time, the store closed after just half a year. Why? Because he didn't know anything about clothing. But that never stopped him. Henry always thought he was some undiscovered genius. I thought that would be the last time my folks helped him, but nope, they kept trusting him. That's when I finally saw the truth. My parents preferred me since I wasn't risky. They said no to me because they never really trusted I deserved their support. And then, about a year ago, I found out something that shook me to my core. I was in the historic part of town running an errand. On the way back, I planned to visit my parents. I didn't tell them I was coming by, I figured I'd just drop in and say hi. But when I got to their house, I saw something surprising, a brand new BMW parked in the driveway. I just stared at it. My parents aren't the type to splurge, so where did this car come from? Then, my mom came out the front door all smiles and said, "Henry just got a new car. Isn't it amazing?" I stood there totally shocked. A BMW? With what money? Henry had flopped so many times, there was no way he could afford something like that. When I walked inside, I tried to stay calm but then noticed a stack of bank papers on the table. I picked them up and started reading. My chest tightened. It was a mortgage loan for $625,000. I couldn't believe it. The loan covered 80% of the house's value. My parents had put their house on the line, but for what? Why borrow so much? I held the papers tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You used the house to get a loan?" I asked calmly. My dad frowned, and my mom wouldn't look at me. "We only took out a small loan to help Henry," she explained casually, like it was no big deal. I let out a dry laugh. "A small loan?" I looked at the number again, $625,000. That's 80% of your home's value, that's small? What about the money Grandpa left you? I asked him. My mom paused and sighed. "That money, it's already gone," she said. "Gone?" I repeated, emphasizing each word like it hurt. I looked back. When I saw the BMW parked outside, I knew exactly what had happened. "You spent the money on Henry's new car, didn't you?" I asked. My parents didn't say anything. My mom just bit her lip, and my dad gave me a look that could freeze water, as if I'd just insulted them. "He needed that car," my dad said with more force than necessary. "In business, appearances matter. Who's going to take him seriously if he pulls up in an average car?" I couldn't help but grin at the absurdity of it all. "So, you blew through all the savings, spent the inheritance, bought him a car, and now you've put the house at risk for another one of his plans. Do you realize how dangerous this is? If Henry screws up again, there won't be a house to come back to." Their faces changed instantly. My mom got mad, and my dad's voice turned cold and harsh. "You're just jealous of your brother, aren't you?" he accused. "You want him to fail so you can feel superior." I stood there, stunned. Jealousy? You really think I envy someone who's wasted the family's money time and time again without ever taking responsibility? They just didn't see it. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but then I remembered something. I turned to my dad and said, "When I was 25, I asked for a $65,000 loan to start my business. Do you remember? You said no immediately, said it was too risky. But now you're okay risking the house for Henry. Has he ever succeeded even once? I'm really disappointed in you both." My dad slammed his glass on the table with a loud bang. "That was years ago and you're fine now," he barked. But Henry needs help. Stop bringing up the past just to tear this family apart. He got up fast and pointed to the door. Leave. If all you're going to do is complain, then don't come back. I looked at them for a few seconds, put the loan papers on the table, nodded, and walked out. While driving home, I called Henry, even though I was frustrated with our parents. I wanted to try to stop him from making another big mistake. Henry, listen, you're going down the wrong path, I said. Mom and Dad have risked everything for you. If you fail again, they'll lose it all. Don't you get that? Instead of listening, Henry laughed, mocking me. You always do this, Elio. You're just jealous, scared I'll be more successful than you, and now you're trying to stop me. I went silent. You really think that? I asked calmly. What else could it be? He scoffed. You've got everything, a company, houses, money. Now that I finally have a chance, you can't stand it. You're just being selfish. I didn't say anything for a while, then shook my head. If that's what you believe, there's nothing else I can say. I hung up, feeling like I had finally given up. A week passed without any contact, then out of the blue, my parents called and asked me over for dinner. I didn't expect that, not after our big fight. But no matter what happened, they were still my family, so I decided to visit. When I got there, Henry was already present, and the vibe was different, less tense. My parents looked at me, and my dad started, Elio, we're sorry. We said some things last time that weren't right. My mom nodded, her voice gentler than usual. Henry also wants to apologize. I looked at Henry, who gave a small nod and rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I was kind of mad then. I shouldn't have said what I did. I was taken aback. My parents had never apologized before, and Henry never admitted fault. For a moment, I wondered if they had finally seen the light. But then, less than a minute later, I figured out what this dinner was really about. My dad cleared his throat and began slowly, Elio, you own 2 properties, your home and one you rent out. I sensed trouble. Why bring this up? I asked, my voice getting colder. My mom chimed in, calm as if it was a casual chat. Henry's getting into real estate. He needs to look trustworthy, and a nice place would help his image. If you could let him have one of your places, it'd be a big help for his future. I sat there, stunned. So that was it, the apologies were just a setup for this ridiculous ask. I replied right away, looking directly at them, no. My mom blinked, clearly shocked by my response. What do you mean, Elio? She asked, still polite but sounding more anxious. I mean, I'm not giving Henry my property. I'm not stupid. The mood in the room changed instantly. Boy, my dad dropped his chopsticks with a bang, and suddenly his face looked super serious. Elio, you've got 2 houses. Henry only needs a leg up. He's your brother, he said. I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh. So, what? You want me to give up my house just to polish up Henry's image? How much money have you already thrown at him when he hasn't done anything impressive? Dad's voice got more intense. He hasn't failed, he just hasn't had his moment yet. And you have everything. Can't you help him out just this once? I laughed again, but it came out dry and hollow. Have everything? You never gave me anything. Remember when I asked for $65,000 to kickstart my business? You turned me down, and now you think I should just hand over a house to Henry? No way. My mom was visibly shaken, and my dad slammed his hand on the table, causing the water glasses to shake. So you're just selfish, like the rest. You're scared Henry might outshine you, right? I stood up, disappointment clear in my eyes. I'm just not dumb, I replied, and the room went silent. I glanced at Henry, who still hadn't said a word. He was staring at the floor, and I knew he'd snatch up the house in a heartbeat if I offered. I was more sickened than mad. If you want to keep believing in him, go ahead. I'm out. As I left what used to be home, I heard my dad's angry voice shouting after me, if you walk out now, don't come back. I didn't stop. As expected, a few months later, Henry's latest venture crashed and burned. My parents didn't say a word about it, and neither did Henry. I found out through a buddy of mine in real estate. Elio, did you hear Henry's business went under? I gripped my phone tight, already knowing the answer. What happened? I asked, playing dumb. He made a bad deal. Bought high, sold low, lost it all. Your parents' mortgage money? Gone. I closed my eyes, not surprised but still feeling the weight of it all. What about the BMW? I asked, almost dreading the response. He sold it a couple of months back, needed cash to keep things afloat, but it didn't help. I let out a flat, joyless laugh. My parents had placed all their bets on Henry, convinced he'd hit it big. But now there's no money, no business, no car, and soon, no house. How did I feel? Not proud or smug, just empty. I'd tried to warn them, but they didn't listen. I knew what was coming next. My phone started buzzing nonstop a few hours after I heard about Henry's flop. My mom called first, then again and again, with messages piling up. Elio, please answer. We need you. Don't leave us hanging. I saw them all but didn't respond. I knew what they wanted, money. The next morning, as I was heading out to work, I stopped in my tracks. There they were, my parents and Henry, looking worse than I'd ever seen them. Henry didn't have that usual confident swagger. He looked worn out, no fancy clothes, no corporate attitude. He was a shadow of his former self. My mom looked like she'd been crying for hours, and my dad, once strong and proud, now seemed way older, as if stress had aged him overnight. They were left with nothing. Dad cleared his throat and spoke in a weak, rough voice, Elio, we were wrong. I folded my arms and leaned against the doorframe, my face unreadable. Now you get it, I said. No arguments, no shouting about me being selfish or envious because they needed me. My mom started to speak, her voice fragile. Son, we're out of options. Please help us, I sighed and cut her off. I don't have any money. They froze, but Dad was ready, like he'd rehearsed his reply. You could sell your company or one of your homes. If we can cover the debt, we can start over. I just looked at him briefly before bursting into laughter, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They really thought I'd sell off the company I built to bail them out, the same people who wouldn't lend me $65,000 to get started. Crazy, right? So, after putting my all into helping them and getting shut out, they had the nerve to ask me to risk everything for them again. I realized I had nothing left to offer. I stood tall, walked over to the door, and flung it open. Get out of my house, I said, pointing outside. No one moved. Henry tried to say something, but I cut him off. I'm not an idiot, I snapped. I was done talking. A month later, the bank took their house. They had to pack up and go. It was no shocker, I saw it coming the day they signed those papers. They bounced around, staying with friends, but that didn't last. Eventually, they ended up in dingy, crowded motel rooms. When they ran out of cash, they hit up shelters for food. These were my parents, who once lived comfortably in a nice house. Now they were completely broke. And Henry, who used to brag about being a businessman and cruised around in a BMW, was jobless. He tried finding work, but nobody wanted to hire him after all his failures. I told myself I didn't care, but I kept tabs on them from a distance. I didn't reach out, but I couldn't totally shut it out. Over 3 months, I let them feel what it was like to lose everything. I wanted them to understand the consequences of their choices. But, deep down, being their kid kept me from ignoring it forever, even after how they treated me. A month ago, I made up my mind to visit them. They looked utterly defeated. My dad, who used to walk with pride, couldn't even meet my eyes. My mom looked worn out, her eyes shadowed from lack of sleep, and her hair had more gray than I remembered. Henry was there too, no longer the confident guy with big dreams. We sat in silence for a bit, and then I finally spoke. I'll rent a small place for you guys, close to the city, but just for a year. My mom's expression softened a bit with hope, but I wasn't done. Henry needs to find a job, and after 12 months, you're on your own. No more help from me. My dad stayed silent, and my mom didn't argue. They knew they couldn't ask for more. Henry tried to say something, but for the first time, my dad raised his hand to stop him. He looked at me and nodded slowly, admitting his mistakes. You might wonder why I'm only offering help for a year. Well, Henry's still living with them, and I'm not going to support him forever. He needs to learn to handle his own problems. If, after a year, my parents can make it on their own, that's awesome. If not, I'll make sure Henry moves out. I'll cover the rent so my parents aren't homeless, but that's it. Henry's not my responsibility anymore. I made my decision, and now I'm curious, what would you do in my shoes? Would you keep helping them, or let them face the consequences of what they did? Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy family saga. If you're into these Reddit family dramas, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.